it's Clover. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about retirement accounts, which means we're going to be talking about IRAs and Roth IRAs and why people like them. And we're going to talk about deductible and not deductible and 401ks. And I'm going to do my best to make it a little bit interesting, but more importantly than that, I'm going to do my best to make it easy to understand because this ish is confusing AF. So edit, I said I was gonna do all of them in one video, but the 401k itself took 10 minutes, so there will be multiple videos, so sorry. But that just means you get more videos and they're shorter, so they're easier to digest. And it's almost like it's so confusing because our system benefits from people not understanding how to retire so that people don't retire because then they can keep working and get charged the income tax for the rest of their life. So, anyway. But back to reality here. We're just going to dive right in. But before we do dive in, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm and hit the subscribe button as well if you enjoy hearing about money from Clover, which is me. But before we're even going to talk about the brass tacks of IRAs and 401ks, first I want to talk about why you should care. Because, Chloe, aren't there financial advisors who can teach me how to do this? Or aren't there planners who will just do this for me so that I don't ever have to think about? And yes, there totally are. The thing is, though, those financial advisors and those financial planners, they cost a lot of money. And it may not seem like a lot because it's like 1% of your portfolio, or as you make more money, it's a little bit less. But that ends up being thousands and thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars from your retirement account. And over the course of a lifetime, that actually could mean years in terms of when you can retire, especially if you're living off of something like $50,000 a year. I mean, think about it. They tell you that it's only 1%, but 1% of $1 million is $10,000, and that's yearly. So every year that you work with a financial advisor or financial planner, and their fee is just 1%, which is only one of their fees, that's their commission, you're losing $10,000. If you're cool with that, go ahead. You don't really need to watch this video. You can just go get a certified financial planner. But if you aren't okay with that, then let's just talk about it. Let's talk about why it's important for you to start looking at these accounts and start figuring out how you can retire. Because once you start understanding it, it's really not as hard as it seems. And the nice thing is that you're going to be able to take the power. You're going to be able to start deciding where your money goes and also what you're going to do with it instead of just paying somebody to do it for you. I understand that some people just want to have somebody do it for them. I totally get the draw in that, but this video is really for people who want to try and figure it out themselves. And I'm coming to you as someone who 2 years ago did not know how to manage my own retirement accounts. And 2 years later, with just a little bit of education, I am now not only managing my accounts, but I'm teaching people how to do it as well. So it's possible. I was very bad with money. I knew nothing about what an IRA was. I assumed an IRA was an investment, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But don't feel bad. It took me 29 years to get to the point where I felt like I could manage my retirement account. So wherever you're starting, don't feel bad about it, and let's just start. So let's talk about 401ks first, or 403bs, which are also just under a bucket of employer-backed retirement accounts. So a 401k or a 403b or another employer-backed retirement account, the thing that differentiates these from IRAs and other retirement accounts is that they are fully associated with your employer. So your employer picks the firm that you're using, the investment firm that you're using. They pick the vehicle, they pick the broker if you have a broker, they pick the funds that you can select within the 401k. And a lot of the times they'll do some fee sharing because 401ks often have high fees. They also are able to conveniently set it up so that your money, your pre-tax dollars from your paycheck comes right on out of your paycheck and into the 401k investments that you've picked. A 401k, like all of the other things we're going to talk about today, all the other retirement accounts, a 401k is not an investment itself. A 401k is like a bucket, and all the stones that you put inside of that bucket are the things that make up your retirement account. So stocks and mutual funds, bonds, sometimes cash, those are all within the 401k bucket, and the 401k bucket is a tax advantaged bucket, meaning that you get some tax benefits by investing your retirement account in a 401k that is backed by your employer. The nice thing about 401ks is that their limits are much higher than an IRA account. So for a 401k in 2020, you can put in $19.5 thousand into it, whereas in an IRA account, you can only put $6,000 if you're under the age of 50. The money that you put into a 401k is pre-tax dollars, meaning you haven't paid taxes on them yet. So you're not going to pay taxes, and your investments and everything are going to grow tax deferred until you get to retirement age and you start pulling that money out. So when you pull that money out, the gains that you've made as well as the money that's in there is going to get taxed at whatever tax rate you are in when you retire. Sometimes people retire at a lower tax rate, which means that it's nicer for you to wait until retirement, but a lot of people also retire at an early or at a higher tax rate, so it's not as nice for you to pay taxes at the age of retirement. So it's kind of a bonus and kind of a drawback too, depending on how you look at it. The other amazing thing about a 401k is that usually your employer has a match. And so a lot of the times it's 3%, or they'll match 100% up to 3%, and then they'll match 50% up to 6% or something like that. That's free money. That's basically your employer saying, if you save for retirement, we'll save for retirement on your behalf. And so if you put $3 in, we'll put $3 in up until 3% or whatever it is of the income. So I always tell my clients, even if you have credit card debt, put in the match because it's free money. If you don't, you are leaving money on the table, and that's just kind of dumb. So you're never going to get 100% return on investment in any other area of life. So you might as well get that free money because you're working anyway. It's almost like if you don't get the match, you're saying no to part of your salary. So it doesn't make any sense to say no to that. So when your HR person asks you how much do you want to put in, if you aren't worried about maxing out the account, which we'll talk about a little bit later, as in putting in $19,500 in, which if you can do that, but if you can't, get that match at the very minimum. Now, what are the benefits of a 401k account, and what is the benefit of even putting in pre-tax dollars? Well, first, because you're putting in pre-tax dollars, that lowers your adjusted gross income, which is your AGI, and that determines what tax bracket you're getting taxed at. So the nice thing is, especially if you're putting in almost $20,000 into your 401k, you're likely lowering your tax bill quite significantly. And especially if you're a decent income earner, then you're going to get some tax breaks, which anytime you can get a tax break is basically like getting free money from the government. So because it's money you didn't have to pay. The other thing too that I really like about 401ks is that they're really convenient. You know that old saying with your granddad where he'd always tell you like, pay yourself first, and you're like, what does that mean? Well, a 401k, essentially you're paying yourself first. You're saving for your future, and what you get in your paycheck has already taken out that money. So you can't spend it because it's already in your 401k. So it's super convenient, and it prevents you, even when you want to go on a trip to Costa Rica, it prevents you from taking that out of your paycheck because you have already chosen to save for your future. So this is my dance move. This is my save for the future dance move. It's also convenient because you can just set your match and forget about it, other than when you need to rebalance your portfolio once or twice a year. So when I say rebalance your portfolio, that means rebalancing the allocations that you have set. So meaning the percentages of bonds, the percentages of stocks, the percentages of whatever in there. So that changes as the market changes. And so for example, I have a high risk preference. So I have an 80-20, 80% stocks, 20% bonds. That will change as the value of stocks go up and the values of bonds stay, the percentages change. So once a year, I have to take a look and rebalance it. There's also a sort of benefit to a 401k in that you can technically borrow against your 401k. You can take a loan. I generally don't recommend that because we're in coronavirus times where your 401k, because it's tied to your employer, if you lost your job while having a loan out from your 401k, you would have to pay it back within 60 days. And sometimes that time frame differs from company to company, but generally you have to pay it back in a pretty quick turnaround, if not shorter than 60 days. So with the way things are right now, that sounds really stressful, and I can't really recommend doing that. But you can always check out my video, how to pay off credit card debt, to get more of my opinion there. It is nice that you have the option in a 401k, and there are also some qualified things that you can borrow against your 401k for. But borrowing against your 401k does give you a risk of not being able to pay it back, which means you're missing out on your retirement. So again, not really something I recommend. And if you do pull it out and you're not able to pay it back, you are then going to be taxed at whatever tax rate your current income is. And then you're also going to get a 10% penalty, which again, not great. What are some of the drawbacks of a 401k? First, if you retire at a higher tax bracket than what you were in when you were contributing, you will pay more taxes on it than if you had contributed post-tax dollars to a Roth 401k. Also, as I said earlier, if you do borrow against your 401k, or if you take money out before the age of 59 and a half, then you are subject to not only paying taxes on that money, but you're also subject to a 10% penalty, which is huge. There are scenarios that the IRS allows you to borrow against your 401k without that 10% penalty, but they're considered hardship distributions, and you'd have to check out that list at the IRS's website. So another drawback of the 401k is that you do have to take required minimum distributions, which, I don't know, when you're 72 years old, which is the age where you're required to start taking minimum distributions, is that really a downside? I mean, it's just saying that you have to take your money out. It can't continue to grow, which sucks. But like, you're 72, like, go spend that money, right? Another downside of the 401k is that you don't have as many investment options as you do in an IRA because your employer has picked the investment options for you. So that's a drawback in that you don't get to pick what you want to pick. Like, if you heard about that sexy VTSAX Vanguard stock that you want to purchase, index fund that you want to purchase, but you can't buy it because it's in a Fidelity account, well, then yeah, that kind of sucks. But the nice thing is your employer's already picked the funds for you, so you don't have to think about it as much. I would also say another drawback is that 401ks can come with a lot of management fees and administrative fees, which is why a lot of the times when you leave a job, people will roll their 401ks over into an IRA that has a lot lower fees. Lots of 401ks also have a vesting period. Usually it's about 5 years, which means that you won't get the full amount in your 401k. You'll get the full amount that you contributed, but you won't get the money that your employer matched unless you've been there a certain amount of time. So there you have it. That's generally why I like 401ks, and that's generally the gist of the benefits and the drawbacks of 401ks and why you should consider investing in one. There's a lot of benefits, especially from the tax side, and it's also a great way to save more money than you would in an IRA for your retirement. Plus, what did we all learn from today? Get that employer match. If you have the opportunity to get that free money, get that free money, or you're leaving money on the table. So that's pretty much it for 401ks. I know I said at the beginning of this video that I was going to cover IRAs and deductible IRAs and Roth IRAs, but because this video for 401k is so long in itself, I figure I'm just going to do the IRA ones as separate videos themselves. So those will be coming out soon. As you can see, this is a later date Colbert recording the ending scene of it, but I've already got the other stuff filmed, so I'll be working on editing those so that I'll be able to add those to my recent blog posts about retirement accounts. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button because that helps me out, and if you also want to hear more from me and you want to see when these next videos come out, be sure to hit the subscribe button. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.